Imagine your own sister calling you a failure in front of her fiancé, laughing at how worthless you are, only for him to suddenly freeze when he discovers the truth about who you really are. That night, my sister thought she was winning. But what happened next silenced the entire room. My name is Ethan Cole, and for as long as I can remember, my sister Sophia treated me as if I were invisible, or worse, a burden. She was the golden child, the one who followed every rule, earned every ounce of praise, and shined at every family gathering. And me? I was the disappointment. At least, that's how Sophia made sure everyone saw me. Whenever relatives came over, she slipped in little jabs about my unstable career, or my lack of direction. To her, I wasn't her brother. I was her favorite punchline. So when she got engaged to Andrew, a wealthy lawyer from an influential family, she used the moment not to celebrate, but to remind me where I supposedly stood. The engagement dinner was held at a high-end restaurant downtown. Relatives dressed in their finest, waiters carried trays of champagne, and Sophia floated around in a designer dress like a queen showing off her crown. I kept to myself, sitting quietly near the back, happy to avoid the spotlight. But Sophia wasn't about to let me. She clinked her glass, gathering everyone's attention, her fiancé's hand in hers. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she said sweetly. Then her eyes flicked toward me, her lips curling into a smile that wasn't kind. And of course, a special thanks to my little brother Ethan, who finally made it out of his basement long enough to join us. Laughter rippled across the room. My chest tightened. Andrew chuckled politely, though I noticed the way he glanced at me. Curious, maybe even uncertain. But Sophia wasn't finished. She leaned closer to Andrew, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Can you believe he still hasn't found a real career? I keep telling him. Maybe one day he'll figure it out. Until then, well, at least he's good for comic relief." The room erupted again. My ears burned. My fork trembled against the plate, but I stayed silent. Because while Sophia thought she was humiliating me, she didn't know one thing. The truth about who I really was. Andrew was about to find out. And when he did, Sophia's smug little empire would collapse in front of everyone. The laughter still echoed around the table, but Andrew didn't join in this time. He glanced at Sophia, then at me, his brow furrowing just slightly. I stayed calm, forcing a faint smile, but inside, my chest burned. Every part of me wanted to snap back, to expose the truth right then and there. But timing was everything. So instead, I kept quiet and let Sophia dig her own grave. She thrived on attention. "Andrew," she said sweetly, squeezing his hand, "you should have seen Ethan in high school. Always late, never passed his exams, always talking about dreams that never went anywhere. I swear, he's been living in some fantasy world forever." The table chuckled again. Andrew gave a polite smile, but I caught the flicker in his eyes, the way he was beginning to piece something together. Finally, he leaned forward and asked me directly, "So, Ethan, what is it you do these days?" The question hung in the air. Sophia rolled her eyes dramatically before I could even answer. "Oh please," she said laughing. "Don't waste your time asking. He bounces between odd jobs, talks about starting businesses that never exist, and spends most of his time alone. He's practically a nobody." The word stung, but I bit my tongue. I knew the power of patience. So I simply said, "I stay busy. I've got a few projects I'm working on." Sophia laughed again, louder this time. "See? Vague as always." "He says projects. But trust me, it's nothing serious." She looked around the table, basking in the chuckles of relatives who had always believed her version of the story. But Andrew's eyes lingered on me. He tilted his head, curiosity sparking. "Interesting," he said quietly, almost to himself. Sophia didn't notice. She was too busy entertaining her audience, taking jab after jab, building her little stage. But Andrew had gone quiet. And I knew what was coming. Because the truth about me, the truth Sophia didn't even bother to learn, was already closer to Andrew than she realized. I excused myself for a moment, stepping away from the table. As I walked past Andrew, I caught his gaze. It wasn't pity. It wasn't judgment. It was suspicion. The kind of suspicion that comes when a lawyer, trained to read people, senses that something doesn't add up. And I smiled. Because Sophia thought she had humiliated me again. But what she had really done was light the match. And Andrew was about to follow the flame. Straight to the truth. When I returned to the table, Sophia was in full performance mode, spinning stories about her upcoming wedding plans. She held Andrew's arm tightly, smiling as if she had already won some invisible prize. But Andrew wasn't smiling. Not really. He laughed at the right moments, nodded when expected, but his eyes kept flicking toward me. Watching. Calculating. So, Ethan, he asked again after a while, his tone casual but firm. You said you're working on projects. What kind of projects exactly? Before I could open my mouth, Sophia jumped in. Oh, Andrew, don't encourage him. He'll go on and on about his little hobbies. Remember when he said he was designing something big? That was 2 years ago, and nothing ever came of it. A few relatives chuckled, but Andrew didn't laugh. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. I shrugged. Some architecture and design work, I said simply. Keeps me busy. Sophia scoffed. Busy? Please. Don't act like you're building skyscrapers. He's exaggerating like always. But Andrew tilted his head, his lawyer's mind clearly connecting dots. Architecture, you say? That's interesting. One of my firm's biggest clients is involved in a major real estate project downtown. I've been reviewing the contracts for weeks. The lead architect's name is Ethan Cole. The table went silent. My fork paused midair. Sophia blinked rapidly, her smile faltering. Andrew's eyes locked on mine. That wouldn't happen to be you. Would it? I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch, watching Sophia squirm, her perfect facade cracking for the first time all evening. Finally, I smiled faintly. Maybe you'll find out soon enough. Andrew chuckled softly, shaking his head in disbelief. But it wasn't the laugh of mockery. It was the laugh of a man realizing he just stumbled onto something much bigger than his fiancé had told him. And Sophia? She shifted uncomfortably, her confidence slipping like sand through her fingers. Because the truth she had spent years burying was clawing its way to the surface. The room felt different now. The laughter that once circled the table had fizzled, leaving behind a heavy silence. Sophia fiddled with her wine glass, her smile twitching as Andrew leaned forward, eyes locked on me. Ethan, he said evenly, answer me directly. Are you the Ethan Cole working on the City Heights project downtown? My heart pounded, but I kept my composure. I leaned back, letting a slow smile spread across my face. Why do you ask? Andrew's gaze sharpened. Because if you are, then I've been reading your work for weeks. The designs, the contracts, the project's brilliant. It's one of the biggest developments the city has seen in years. The table gasped. A murmur rippled through the relatives, heads swiveling toward me. Before I could speak, Sophia burst out laughing, her voice shrill. Oh, come on, Andrew. Do you really think he could be behind something like that? He's been exaggerating since we were kids. Don't let him fool you. But her laugh sounded forced, almost desperate. Andrew didn't even glance at her. His eyes stayed on me. Is it you? He repeated. I let the silence linger. The longer I waited, the more nervous Sophia became. She placed her hand on Andrew's arm, her tone turning syrupy sweet. Babe, don't waste your time. Ethan's just trying to look important. He's always been like this. Andrew finally turned to her, his jaw tightening. Funny. You never mentioned your brother was even in this field. You always described him as, well, nothing. Sophia froze, her face paling. That's because it's not true. He's making it up. All eyes turned back to me. I calmly set my fork down, meeting Andrew's stare without flinching. I don't have to make anything up, I said softly. Truth doesn't need defending. The tension was electric. For the first time in years, Sophia wasn't in control of the narrative. Andrew's doubt was growing, her mask was slipping, and everyone at the table could feel it. She had spent years painting me as a nobody. But her fiancé was beginning to see the cracks in her masterpiece. And soon, the truth she feared most would tear it apart completely. After dinner, the air in the restaurant felt charged, like a storm was about to break. Relatives whispered among themselves, casting glances at me, at Sophia, at Andrew. My sister laughed too loudly at small talk, trying to shift the mood back in her favor, but it was too late. Andrew stood suddenly. "Ethan," he said firmly, "mind stepping outside with me for a moment?" Sophia's smile froze. "Andrew, really? This is ridiculous." "He's only trying to make himself look good." But Andrew ignored her. His eyes were on me, steady and unblinking. "Just a few minutes." I nodded and rose, following him out into the cool night. The chatter inside muffled behind the glass doors. We stopped near the valet stand, city lights glittering above us. Andrew turned, his voice low but intense. "I need the truth. Are you the Ethan Cole on the City Heights project?" I studied him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "Yes. I'm the lead architect. Every design, every blueprint you've reviewed, those are mine." Andrew's eyes widened. For a second, he just stared, then let out a sharp laugh of disbelief. "Unbelievable. I've been praising that work for weeks in meetings. Your sister told me you were... what? Unemployed? Living off scraps." I smirked faintly. That's her favorite story. It's easier for her to build herself up by tearing me down. He ran a hand through his hair, shaking his head. "So all this time she's been lying. I thought she just... exaggerated. But this..." He paused, eyes narrowing. "Why didn't you defend yourself tonight?" "Because," I said calmly, "truth doesn't need to be screamed. It reveals itself in time. And besides, watching her facade crack on its own is far more satisfying." Andrew let out a breath, his jaw tightening. "She's been humiliating you for years, hasn't she?" I didn't answer, but the silence was enough. We stood there for a long moment. Then Andrew placed a hand on my shoulder. "For what it's worth, you have my respect. Your work is brilliant. And you don't deserve the way she treats you." Through the glass, I could see Sophia standing inside, watching us with wide eyes, her mask of control slipping further with every passing second. She knew Andrew was beginning to see the truth. And she was terrified. When we walked back in, the whispers in the room grew louder. Relatives leaned closer, curiosity buzzing. Sophia's face was pale, her smile stretched thin. Andrew didn't sit next to her this time. Instead, he stood tall and said clearly, "Ladies and gentlemen, I just confirmed something remarkable about Ethan." The room hushed. Sophia's fingers clenched around her wine glass, knuckles white. And in that silence I knew, her empire of lies was seconds from collapse. The restaurant fell silent as Andrew's voice cut through the air. Every pair of eyes turned toward him, and for once, Sophia wasn't basking in the spotlight. She was shrinking from it. Andrew held his glass up, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on me. "Most of you may not know this, but I've been working on one of the largest real estate projects in the city. City Heights. The designs are extraordinary, unlike anything I've seen in my career. And tonight," he paused, his voice firm, "I learned that the man behind those designs is none other than Ethan Cole." Gasps rippled through the room. Relatives who had chuckled at Sophia's jabs moments earlier now stared at me with wide eyes, whispering among themselves. A few even clapped softly, unsure but impressed. Sophia's face drained of color. "Andrew," she stammered, forcing a laugh, "you can't be serious." "He's just trying to." Andrew cut her off sharply. "Enough. Sophia. I've read every contract, every blueprint. His signature is on all of it. Ethan isn't a nobody. He's the reason the project even exists." The whispers grew louder. Some relatives nodded in recognition, muttering about news articles they'd seen but never connected to me. I sat still, calm, letting the truth do the work. Sophia's mask cracked completely. Her voice rose, desperate, almost panicked. "You don't understand. He's always been nothing. I've carried this family's reputation, not him." But her words fell flat. No one was laughing anymore. No one was nodding in agreement. The spotlight she had built for herself had turned into a furnace, and she was burning inside it. Andrew looked at her with disappointment etched into his face. "You lied to me, Sophia. About him. About everything." The weight of the room pressed down. For the first time in years, she wasn't the one in control. And for the first time, I was. The room was buzzing with murmurs, all eyes flicking between Sophia, Andrew, and me. My sister's perfect facade was gone. Her hands shook, her lips trembled, and her voice, once sharp and commanding, cracked under the weight of truth. "Andrew, please," she pleaded, clutching at his arm. "You can't believe this. He's lying. He's always been a liar." Andrew pulled his arm free, his expression hard. "No, Sophia. I've worked with his name on contracts for months. I've praised his work in boardrooms. I've seen his vision transform into blueprints that will shape this city's skyline. You didn't just lie, you tried to erase him." The whispers grew louder. Relatives who had once laughed at me were now staring at Sophia with open disgust. An uncle muttered, "All these years, we thought Ethan was struggling," while an aunt shook her head. "She fooled us all." Sophia's eyes darted wildly around the room, looking for someone, anyone, to defend her. But no one spoke. The silence was heavier than any insult she had ever thrown at me. And then she snapped. Her voice rose, shrill with desperation. "Fine. Maybe he has some stupid job, but he'll always be nothing compared to me. I'm the one people actually care about. I'm the one who built this family's reputation." Andrew turned to her, his disappointment sharp as a blade. "No, Sophia. You built your reputation on lies. On tearing your brother down so you could stand taller. That isn't strength, it's weakness." Gasps echoed again, but I didn't flinch. I simply sat there, calm, finally free of the weight I had carried for years. I rose slowly, letting the room settle into silence once more. "You see," I said clearly, my voice steady, "all my life, Sophia told everyone I was a nobody. And you all believed her. But I never needed her approval. I never needed validation from those who mocked me. Because while she spent her energy trying to destroy me, I was busy building something she could never touch." I paused, glancing at Andrew, who gave me a firm nod of respect. Then I looked back at my sister. "And now? The truth is out. Everyone sees it. You can't hide behind your lies anymore." Sophia's face crumbled. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the star of the room. She was the villain. Andrew stood tall beside me. "If this is what you've been hiding, Sophia, then I don't think I can move forward with someone who manipulates and lies this way. Engagement or not, I won't marry into deceit." Her gasp was audible. She reached for him, but he stepped back. The entire room seemed to close in on her. The same 50 faces that once laughed at me were now watching her fall apart. And I simply turned, straightened my jacket, and walked toward the door. This time, I wasn't walking out in shame. I was walking out in victory. Behind me, I heard the final sound of Sophia's empire collapsing. Her sobs, her protests, her desperate cries. But they no longer mattered. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't her shadow. I was the truth she could never bury. The end.